time for Jonathan Handel. He's an entertainment and technology attorney of counsel at Troy Gould in Los Angeles. He's also the contributing editor on entertainment labor issues for The Hollywood Reporter, which is why we're chatting with Jonathan today. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome back.
Larry, thanks for having me.
Jonathan, let's get right into it. What's happening with the Writers Guild?
The Writers Guild is trying to change the rules that apply to talent agents. The guilds, like the state of California and the state of New York, regulate talent agents. Each of the unions has a set of rules called an agency agreement or a franchise agreement. There are various names for it. Almost a year ago, the Writers Guild sent a one-year notice of termination. So the existing rules expire April 6th. On April 7th, the Writers Guild is likely to impose new rules unilaterally. And that's something that the talent agencies are very, very, very uncomfortable with, to put it mildly.
Well, why does the Writers Guild want to make changes in the first place?
There are three reasons. One of them is a basic question of power. We think of the talent agencies and the guilds as both being very powerful. They both serve an overlapping constituency of writers in this case, and they have their own separate functions. Writers Guild negotiates the basic union agreement, the basic wages, and so forth. The talent agents negotiates wages above that for people who have more power and more standing in the industry. So two organizations, one overlapping constituency. That's the way it works in practice. But the Guild says, look, as a matter of very basic power, unions have the exclusive right to represent the unionized workers, in this case the writers, and therefore any power that the agents have, notwithstanding the fact that they live in, that they have these beautiful, expensive buildings and lots of money, any power that the agents have derives from us, the union, and we're going to dial it back. Now that's number one. The next two are two specific practices that the agents engage in that the guilds don't like. One of them is called packaging. There are two aspects of packaging. One is you take a script, you bring your agent a script, the agent says this is great, the agent says this would be great for George Clooney, who just happens to be a client of our agency as well. So we're going to package the script with George Clooney. We're going to persuade Clooney that, see if Clooney likes the script, and if so, we're going to go out to the marketplace with Clooney plus the script packaged together and find a studio that wants to buy this as a movie or as a TV series or whatever this project is. Now that's fine, but what the Guild objects to is the payment process that works in conjunction with that. You may think that agents get 10% of what their clients make. In general, especially at the big agencies, that's not it at all. They don't take anything from what the clients make. Let's suppose this Clooney plus Jonathan Handel script pilot television series actually gets picked up by a studio. Are they going to take 10% of what they negotiate for me and 10% of Clooney's fee? They're not. They're going to take what's called a packaging fee from the studio itself, not paid by the clients, paid by the studio. And the way that packaging fee is calculated is complicated. We don't have to get into it. But the Writers Guild says, you know what? That reduces their incentive to maximize the money that comes to Clooney and Handel. And in fact, notwithstanding the fact that Handel created this television series to begin with, and it turns out to be a really successful series, sometimes the agency makes more money than the creator himself or herself. We don't like that. Finally, a newer practice called affiliated production. The talent agencies, the big three, which is WME, William Morris Endeavor, CAA, and UTA, have all set up affiliated companies that actually substitute for studios and are buyers themselves and do production or production type activities. You're not forced to take your project to them. They are an additional choice in the marketplace. But the Writers Guild says that that's inherently conflicted, that if your agent is also, at least even indirectly, your employer, you don't have an agent to begin with. Now, the irony is that one of the people who's in business with Endeavor Content, the WME affiliated entity, is none other than Bo Willimon, who's the president of the Writers Guild East. So while the Writers Guild East is taking this very strong stand against affiliated production, Bo Willimon is actually availing himself of it because he got a better deal with Endeavor Content than was available from Universal and Disney and whoever else.
So what happened last week where all this blew up?
Well, we've been ticking down towards this April 7th, and last week the Writers Guild met with managers to try to enlist them in their fight against agents, and they met with entertainment lawyers. And the meetings, particularly the meeting with managers, did not go well. The meeting with managers was described in terms that we won't repeat on a family show, but it involved 4-letter words by the managers involved. And what the managers and lawyers both told me, and I interviewed a total of about over 10 of them, was that the Writers Guild didn't seem to have the vaguest idea how the industry really works. They didn't seem to have a plan. They were going to blow things up in a way that would make things worse for writers, that this was cutting off one's nose to spite one's face, in the words of one entertainment lawyer, and that the results were going to be disastrous. Talent agencies are not going to sign on to the new rules the Writers Guild intends to impose April 7th, and writers are going to be forced by Writers Guild rules to therefore leave their agents, because you can't stay with an agent who hasn't signed the current rules. The current rules right now were negotiated jointly between the agencies and the Writers Guild, but as of April 7th, the rules will be rules that the Writers Guild imposes unilaterally, assuming that the union membership approves what the union leadership is doing. There's going to be a vote on March 25th, but the leadership will get their vote. They'll get it in the 90s. The union leaderships almost always do. So we're headed towards what's likely, I think, to be, the Writers Guild says we're not going to compromise on these issues. I think it's likely to be federal court litigation on April 7th, and a very unstable and uncertain situation potentially. Everyone involved is predicting, except the Writers Guild, is predicting utter chaos. The idea that a sort of open submission process with notices on the Writers Guild website, coupled with managers and entertainment attorneys and with people leaving their agents, the idea that that's going to substitute for the existing process, which is driven by, largely by agents, does not seem to be something that people are comfortable with in the least.
It sounds like we've got a recipe for a disaster coming up in about a month.
Potentially so. The Writers Guild is absolutely adamant. The agencies are adamant. There have been a couple of meetings between the two sides, but I would say no real negotiations. It was more talking past each other. There are no meetings scheduled. I don't think there will be any meetings until after this March 25th vote, at which point the Writers Guild will be even more firm in its position that they're not going to compromise. The Writers Guild says, look, these are issues of principle. This is conflict of interest. You don't compromise on principle. But, the reality is the issue of packaging fees could be resolved quite easily, in a certain sense, it's an issue of money, by compromising and saying, look, if in instances where shows succeed beyond wildest dreams and perhaps an agency is making a lot more potentially than the writers are, rare cases that happens, you share some of the excess above a certain threshold with the writers. It's about money. Money is compromisable. Money is, as lawyers like to say, fungible. It's something that you can. There's more for me, there's less for you. There's more for you, there's less for me. Somewhere in between, you find a compromise point. It's not like the Hollywood 10 and refusing to testify before a malignant Congress. But the Writers Guild has taken a very strong position on this, and their position on the basic issue of power, of do these talent agencies, which in the real world today have an independent existence and enormous amounts of money and power and stature, do they in fact exist just at the sufferance of the Guild and have only so much power as the Guild deigns to give them? That in many ways is the most difficult to compromise issue of all.